You guys have nothing else to do on Friday night, huh? So I got out of there early for you guys. Not yeah, I got it. I'm getting excited. You know, obviously at night it always gets a little more energetic for these guys. I think anytime you play football at night or practice at football, you expect some energy, different type of energy. Sometimes more vocal energy than you would anticipate. But I look at our team right now, and guys are improving as far as what we're asking them to do. They want to play tackle football very badly. But before you can play tackle football, you got to learn how to practice. And that's been my emphasis the last 6 practices. We got to learn how to practice. Next week we'll actually tackle and take some people down to the ground. I think they're ready for that now, so that's the next phase of it. I think every time you go to practice, there's different phases you look at as a head coach with your football team. We're very thin on the offensive line, as you guys can see right now. That's always a concern, because when you play football, and especially offensive football, and your offensive line is struggling some, and it's light at some positions there, it's a concern. And so I think those guys have improved some. That helps you, and I think next week we can actually start tackling and doing the things that are necessary to get them ready to that next phase.
Initially planning to have a live session earlier?
No, in my mind, no. I think the players anticipated it, because you see pads and everybody says, "Oh, we're going to tackle today." I said, "Who said that? Just because you're a passer, that doesn't mean you tackle." And I think there's a way you have to prepare a team to learn how to practice, and it's taken us some time for them guys to understand what the tempos are, what's required in a certain period that we're playing. That's how you learn how to practice. The one thing you learn about practice, and I've been in a bunch of them in my lifetime, everyone has to be on the same tempo. They got to know what's required in that drill, in that period, because when you don't, that's how guys get hurt. And the one thing we don't want is injury. Injuries are always a part of football, as you know, but when you can avoid it, you try to. And I think the thing you have to realize is that what speed is required when you're in that period. And they got to learn how to do that. And this is why I always carry a whistle. And until they learn how to do that, then it becomes one guy's going a little harder than the other guy, and then you got an injury. There lies the problem. You see it all the time, so I want to make sure we know how to do that, and I think we'll be prepared to do that next week better.
We talk about having a thin offensive line. Does that, I'm not saying minimize, but we said the defensive line performing well. Does that kind of take that into consideration?
Yeah, and there's probably, you know, when you look at the scholarship players, the walk-on guys are doing a fabulous job, but there's a reason they're walk-on guys, okay? And versus some scholarship players, is going to be a differential there. And the problem is offense plays with the ball. And if you can't protect, whether it's in the run game or the pass game, your offense gets sluggish. And then all of a sudden you have athletes that are out of position because athletically might not be as good as the guy they're facing, and that's how injuries occur. So all those things are factored in when you practice, and you got to realize that as a coach, and I've seen it enough in my lifetime as being a coach and a former player, that's a concern.
The trend nationally is college coaches are a little paranoid. They like to restrict access, and coaches are kind of closing things up a little bit. You just had a couple hundred fans out there. You know, we're videoing things. Why so open to start this off?
As I said before, what is there to hide? We're just practicing. I mean, everything we do is on tape, even for our opponent. I mean, you kidding me? So you can't hide who you are. I mean, and what we do in practice, I mean, if fans want to film that, that's great. Film it all you want. I mean, we haven't had a game plan yet. We're learning how to practice. So they're getting a lot of tape on how to learn how to practice a football team. But other than that, I mean, our plays are our plays. Will we do some things different? Wait till you see the spring game. Wait till you see how we handle that. You'll be in shock. We'll shock a lot of people when that one starts. That's a surprise. You'll just wait and see. It'll be a surprise. You'll see. I know what I'm doing. In other words, I And I understand the question you're asking, but it's no different when you think about it for me. When you go to training camp, think about this. When you go to training camp, professional football, you go to training camp, you generally go away. Fans come in and watch you. They film your practices. Scouts from opponent teams actually come and watch you practice. My job was to do that because we were trying to figure out the guys you were going to cut. To make sure when you had your cut, we were looking at certain players saying, oh, they cut that guy, you know what, he can fit, he can help us. So I don't get it. What are we saying here? I don't know. And I guess some guys just want to close it up, and they want to just, hey, we're going to close it up, and okay, whatever. I don't know. When fans go to a game, do they film it? Probably do. You can tell fans they can't have one of these to go to the game, watch the game. You see it all the time on sports centers. These fans showing their camera. Oh, I just got that highlight on my thing on my phone. I don't know. I'm not a paranoid guy. I don't worry about this stuff.
I haven't seen a lot of yelling and screaming out there.
You haven't?
No, not really.
Good.
Do you talk to your coaches about that?
Yeah, we're coaches. We're teachers.
Yeah, and also from a language standpoint, do you discuss that at all with them in terms of what might be appropriate to say to a player?
Yeah, but I think the coaches know. I don't have my sheet with me. Yeah, I always say watch your language. It's important because families are out there, kids are out there, recruits are out there, parents are out there, and I just think there's a way you teach, and I think that's important. Now, does the volume go up with certain coaches? Yeah, it goes up. It goes up with me sometimes. But I think our words are powerful, and how you address an athlete is very important, and you better know the athlete you're addressing, and the moment you address him, what are you trying to convey? We're teachers. We're teachers. And what I've learned is when you pump the volume down, people have to really focus in on what you're saying. When you scream, it's just noise. When you focus and you get real soft in your speech, people go, oh, I gotta look, what is he saying? That's just something I've learned along the way of coaching.
What kind of leadership do you see out
What I anticipated, there was a couple guys, not only Manny, that I visited with already before we even started practicing about what their role was going to have to be. This has to be a players' team. They have to lead this team. All good teams are led by the players in the locker room. Any team I've ever been involved in. And that starts back to the high school team that I played on. We lost one game in 3 years. Never changes. Players have to lead. And you have to give them the ability to do that. And the thing they realize about leading, and I told them today about it, leaders sometimes aren't liked. You got to know the difference between being liked and being respected. Leaders are respected, and there's a difference. If you want to be liked, it's going to be very difficult for you to lead because you're going to have to say some things and do some things that all of a sudden you might not agree with, but it's for the best interest of the team that you lead. And when you lead, you want to be respected, and when you do that, that kind of sets the precedent of who you are.
Did you have any of those conversations with any wide receivers?
Personal conversations I have. I don't need to mention who they are. I think you guys can figure that out.
Coach, why did you decide to have Friday night practices as opposed to Saturdays or maybe early
I thought the players enjoy Friday nights. I think the high school coaches next week will be having a clinic. It was to allow them to have the ability to get here Friday night. Some players locally that want to come to practice could come on Friday night. And you know, we actually play football games at night. So I think the more you can put them in that atmosphere, the more you find out about them. And it's always fun to play under the lights. It's always been that way. So I just think it's a way where the coaches can come in tonight, watch the film Saturday. You know, they can be with their families if they need to be. So I just think it's a way we can accomplish a lot of things.
I heard you say to one of your defensive backs today when you guys were stretching, don't get on that list. list that you keep pretty certain?
Yeah, there's a list that runs around every once in a while. You know, it's a personal list.
What might be something someone will do to get put on that?
Just not understanding what's required, certain things, certain matters, and I always hug them, tell them, okay, don't get on this list. You don't want to be on this list. It's not. It's just. It's a reminder. You know, it's a reminder. It's kind of like, you know, when you pull up to the four-way, and there's that light flashing, that yellow light. You get to make a decision when it's yellow. Do I stop or do I run through it? And most people run through it. I actually stop, because I always tell people, you know, you keep running through that yellow light, eventually you're going to get in an accident. So when I tell them don't get on my list, I say, right now, it's yellow. Just stop. Just stop. It'll turn green eventually, but if you keep running through this thing, we're going to have a problem. It's going to turn red on you. So that's all you need to say. It's simple, not that hard.
Gary Slade was actually starting to do a little bit more. What are your
Yeah, observation, he's a very athletic guy, but he hasn't practiced a lot of football. And so he's a little bit behind, and rightly so, because he hasn't been practicing. You know, this is a game of participation. Availability is critical, because this game takes that if you're going to be any good at it. And he's fallen behind some now. He's into it. He wants to get well, but he only can get well when he gets well. No one can rush him, so it's good to see him out there. But just imagine, he's been basically maybe in practice 6 times. I don't know if he's practiced more than twice. You know, and that's hard for any guy. I mean, he's been kind of through the off season. He wasn't running a lot. You know, he's got some leg issues. He's getting better, and we need him. You know, he's a big, strong, athletic guy that can help us. So it's good to see him out there.
Coach, what kind of identity are you looking for out of your offense and your defense, and follow up that? Have you seen that forming so far?
Well, I think it's not fair to the offense yet, in the fact that we don't have all our components here. There are going to be some guys that walk in here that are going to help us, and I'll let you guys figure that out when they get here. Defensively as well, I think defensively, I talked about a little bit yesterday. We want to be a good tackling defense. We want to be able to take the ball away, play good situation football, in the red zone especially. Any defense that I've been involved with, the good ones, were able to do that. Offensively, we have a veteran group of guys over there, especially the quarterback, very talented guy. And you want to be an offensively that can be multidimensional. When you need to play fast, you can play fast. When you need to possess the ball for long periods of time, in the fact that you don't want the opponent to possess the ball, you got to be able to run it, and you have to be physical. When you get in the red zone, we obviously have a guy that's very difficult to cover, and we know who that is. There's a couple other guys over there as well. But I think you got to be able to run the ball some down there as well. You know, so we have the makings of that when we all come together. It'll be fun when we get those 21 guys in there. I'm not making excuses, but that's the facts. There's 21 new players coming here, and there's going to be new competition when we go to Camp Cush, and that's going to be interesting to watch. So you know, 6 practices in. We lined up a lot better defensively the last 2 days than the first 4 days. So that's progress. You can't give the players talent, by the way. That's given by God. Now, what you can do is fundamentally make them better and press their brain to make them understand this is the defense, this is what's required at your position to play this defense. They're starting to learn that. You don't see coaches hollering as much. They're telling guys how to line up. They're kind of figuring out how to line up. And so I think we're progressing that way. The offense is ahead of us. It's a veteran group for the most part. You know, so that's a good thing. But I think now defense is starting to kind of figure out who they are. It's kind of fun to watch.
Well, the previous coaching staff had rules, like if you were in the building, you couldn't wear earrings, you couldn't wear hats. Anything like that with you? I mean, it seems like talk to the players. There's nothing like that in place right now. Which is the last one.
Just respect each other. I think that, I grew up in the 60s where you couldn't have facial hair on certain teams. I get that part. It's probably the reason I went to Cal Berkeley. And my father was a master sergeant, so how do you figure that one out, right? So I just think that we have to have a common respect for each other, and they know where I'm coming from. I mean, and I have to lead that. I got to be the one that they look at and say, how does the coach act? And I just think they know when they get to the line where it's a little bit edgy, I'll remind them. We ain't crossing that line. I learned this a long time ago. I'm not a rule guy. I'm an expectation guy. This is what I expect. I've never told the players, this. This is what I expect. I expect you to be on time. Some people will say, my rule is be on time. No, I expect you to be on time. I expect you to do this. I just believe in expectations. Why? Because most people want to meet expectations. I was one of those guys, like I said, I grew up in the 60s, and when I had the coach telling me you couldn't do this, I said, after he got to the third rule, I was like, yeah, okay, a lot of rules here. When you say the same thing and say, these are the expectations you need to meet if you're going to be a college athlete, this is what I expect. And here they are. It's real simple. And if they don't do that, then I tell them, guess what? Don't get on my list. It's a bad list to be on. Don't get on it. And I think they understand that. They know. You don't have to run around and, just, it's okay. It's all right. Be yourself. That's what I always tell players. Be yourself within the framework of respecting everybody. That's important.
Coach, so you can't coach, can't Arizona. It's not the timeliest question at this point. We do have a reporter working on a story about the improvements in the new field, the turf going up there. What's your thoughts on that process and how excited you are?
I think it's fantastic. We took a visit up there, our coaching staff, just kind of look at the layout. I think it's fabulous. I really do. And that's why I keep saying is I understand it's Camp T, but the football tradition was Camp Cush's tradition. It's his deal. It was his vision, and that's why I call it Camp Cush. But what I've heard in the past about the fields, how hard it was, well, we don't have to worry about any rainouts. We can stay right there and get things done. There's a lot of history. There's a lot of bonding that's been done there. And it's kind of ironic, today, you think about history, Mike Haynes was at practice and played with Mike, played against Mike. And I called him up in the group with all the defensive backs and I said, do you guys know who this is? And a lot of them are kind of looking, and I read his history. I said, this is who Mike Haynes is, for all you guys that don't know. And I said, for some of you who don't, after practice, Google it, figure out who this guy is. And kind of told them who Mike was. And I think the more we see players from the past come here, it's great for the program because these are the guys that built this program. They're the foundation. They're the shoulders that we stand on. And I think it's very, very important that these athletes understand who these guys were before them. They wore these numbers. They played in this stadium. And what we're going to do when the rest of the guys come, I've made it my personal issue that we're going to go all the way back to the 60s. And as the team meets before a meeting, when we start back again, when the 21 guys come in, we're going to go back to the 60s and really remember some of the players that have been here. And so give these players some history of this. And I think it's very, very important because without history, you have no knowledge. And they need knowledge of how this team was built, and not just with Coach Kutch, but other coaches that have coached here, and the players that actually played the same positions these guys played. It's kind of ironic. They don't know that. I was really big on that growing up. As a kid, I always knew I knew the history of the NFL. I marveled in that kind of stuff of the players, the Donnie Andersons, and my heroes. I told you before was Jim Thorpe. And everybody says, "Who's Jim Thorpe?" I look at people sometimes. You don't know who Jim Thorpe is? Really? They're like, "No." I said, "Oh boy, really?" So that's just me, and I just think you always try to do that. You try to equate what these guys are doing now, it's been done before, and the players that have done it before, how good they were. It's important.
What have you seen out of Evan Fields in the first team this spring?
Not bad. I mean, a guy, you know, just finding his way, you know, and most of them are sponges. They want to learn, and that's a good thing. And, you know, when you're raw like that, you don't have a lot of bad habits. I was talking to Mike about that today. You know, I said, Mike, I said, you know, he says, he looked at me, we both started laughing. He says, yeah, that means these guys don't have a lot of bad habits for what you're trying to do. I said, no, you don't. It's great. So you just kind of teach. So it's been fun. I think these guys understand that there's a lot of teaching going on, you know, and I think that's important, that you teach them, you know, and that they become good listeners when you have something to say. And there's a way you say it, you know, and I always tell coaches, you know, our words are powerful, and how we approach a player and how you coach a player, they're all different. They're all different now. And I've been around a lot of coaches, and you got to be able to blend your message, and you say it different ways to different guys, and you got to figure that guys out, you know, and I think when you can do that, that's when you get the most out of a player. Yeah. Thank you. You guys have a good Friday night, huh?